I was invited to Dhaka this time to be on the jury of the Ganesh Haloi research grant that the Bengal Foundation has initiated this year. And this is the first grant where me, Naeem, Mohaiemen and Marina, Tabassum were invited to be on the guest jury.
In any case, I think there is a lack of research you see in every field, be it architecture, art or anywhere. And I think it's an interesting thing that Bengal, with this Ganesh Haloi research grant, it's sort of coming up with a very interesting and important point where you actually establish something which has been lacking for quite a while now.
And I think something that stood out for me in this research grant call is the number of applicants who range across the board from being artists to researchers and academics to curators to even people from neighboring regions who are interested in exploring the history of Bangladesh art.
There can be a tendency to pre-plan everything, and part of the reason for that also can be the process of applying for something, applying for a residency, applying for a grant, which by definition requires you to start already packaging your idea, already containing it. We just spent a couple of days looking at the Ganesh Haloi research grant applications, and there is a difference between projects where somebody puts it together for this and something that somebody's been thinking about for a long time, which happens to fit with this. And I find these have more space to breathe, the things that have been happening for a long time. They can be more spontaneous, there are more surprises, they don't feel so boxed in, the results are unpredictable.
It's interesting to see both, of course, scholars and critics and academics use archives, but it's equally interesting to see how artists and curators are using archives, and when they do, all sorts of fascinating things emerge. You have new kinds of artworks where it's not about researching for practice, but in fact practice itself as a research method. So I think the way archives translate into both curatorial and artistic practice is really relevant today in the information age.
You know, I think it wouldn't be good if people start saying, oh, I'm a research-based artist, or I make research-based work, or I have a research-based practice, or, you know, the archive is part of my, because I think it's fine to have that in your head, but I think when that becomes part of the way you define yourself in the world, then there's a high level of planning to all your interactions. And I think the best projects that have come to me have always come by accident. They've almost always been something that happened a couple of years back that I was never thinking of.
I mean, architecture it's a very interesting thing because it actually takes into all these different aspects of art, science, humanities, anything you talk about, or even engineering. The design process of Baitur Rauf Mosque, it definitely started with the research. So there's a historic aspect to it. There is also symbolic aspect, there are identity that people associate it with, and so then once you have these informations, then you start analyzing and coming up with your own position where you want it to be at this point in time.
Project that I just finished, 2 meetings and a funeral, Duti Shomabesh Ekti Janaja, which is a 3-channel piece. It's a history of the non-aligned movement, and it just finished showing at Documenta in Kassel. That's an example of a project where it started somewhere so far back that I wasn't thinking research or project. I was just having these conversations over several years with Amirul Islam and others about this moment. And over various dinners or encounters, dawat, little stories were told, and I remembered them, I forgot about them, you know, I moved on. Then now this conversation that was initially very casual started becoming more formalized. So for me, a lot of my projects start from an accident, and then eventually, a couple of years later, it shows up somewhere else.
While there are, of course, a number of organizations such as the Bengal Foundation or Asia Art Archive and a number of like-minded friends who are facilitating and supporting artists, curators, students, writers to do research on the arts, for all of those artists who probably are not getting the opportunity to access those resources or access travels to visit these places, There's of course the internet that is now the research or search tool for practically everyone. And also it's good to remember that there have been ways that information and knowledge have circulated through print media for the longest time. But in today's time, I suppose one thing that everyone has learned is the importance of conversations.